Welcome, friends. So, today at Mad Medicine, we are going to discuss a very important topic, and that is none other than retinoblastoma. Yo. So, in this, we have divided the lecture into two parts, that is part 1 and part 2. So, currently, this video is part 1 of the lecture series, and we are going to discuss various topics such as the disease entity and a part of the diagnosis and pathology, right? So the disease entity, the pathology, and the diagnosis, a few things of the diagnosis, that is the clinical presentation. Fine. So let us start, and in the next video, that is part 2, we will discuss the other left out part of the diagnosis and the management. So starting with the disease entity, the first thing is the incidence of the disease. So this disease typically occurs in children of age less than 2 years. It occurs in 1 in 20,000 live births. Usually Caucasians are affected more, and this disease, it occurs usually unilateral, but 25% of the cases they may be bilateral. Okay, so that was about the incidence of the disease. Then we talk about the genetics. In genetics, you know that it is the retinoblastoma gene, RB1 gene, located on chromosome 13, Q14 band. And this is a tumor suppressor gene. So when this gene gets mutated, then what happens? There are various other tumors of the body, and obviously the most common is the retinoblastoma. So there is an Hudson's hypothesis or a two-hit theory that both the alleles of the gene, they should get affected by hits, that is they should get mutated so that the disease is manifested. It is an autosomal dominant disease, and when you study the two hit hypothesis, so we need to know that if both the hit they occur before organogenesis, that is in the early fetal life, then it manifests in the form of a heritable type of retinoblastoma. That means three things: the disease will be bilateral in 85% cases, the disease will have other non-ocular tumors of the body, and thirdly, the disease will be passed on to offsprings with 50% chance of offspring getting the disease. Okay, so if both the hit they occur before organogenesis, then this is the fate, that is you acquire or you manifest or you get a sort of heritable type of retinoblastoma. Whereas a non-heritable type of retinoblastoma, one hit occurs before organogenesis, the second is that because of some somatic mutation. So as a result of that, what will be the three implications of a non-heritable type of RB? Number one, it is usually unilateral, unifocal. Number two, it does not predispose to other tumors of the body. And number three, it is not passed on to the progeny. Okay. So which one should be more common, heritable type or a non-heritable type? The non-heritable type occurs in 60% of the cases and heritable accounts for 40% of the cases. The other thing you can say that retinoblastoma could be divided as 10% and 90%. 10% of the cases they are familial, they are running in families. The other 90% is occurring as a sporadic. That is, a mutation takes place during spermatogenesis, during the gamete formation, or later on some other somatic mutation that the person acquires in their life. And so 10% are familial and 90% are sporadic. Out of that 90%, 2/3 and 1/3, so 2/3 are because of some somatic mutation, and the rest 1/3 are because of the germline mutations. Okay, familial sporadic, somatic and germline mutations, all this we've discussed, right? So that was the genetics also. And now we need to come to the classification. The classification systems, there are three of them. For two, you need to know their names, and for one, you need to know the grading and all. So the ones which are not used nowadays, that is the Rees-Ellsworth classification and the IRCH classification. Just know the names. And the one which is important now is the International Classification of Retinoblastoma. It has 5 grades. So you can pause the video and you can note down this grading. Okay. Now let's have an explanation of this. There are 5 grades A to E. Okay. Grade A implies a very low risk. Then B, low risk. C is moderate, D is high risk, and E is very high risk. So if you talk about type A, what does it imply? What does grade A imply? A means it is a small tumor less than 3 millimeter in size. It is at least 3 millimeters away from the fovea and at least 1.5 millimeters away from the optic disc. B, it means a large tumor which is more than 3 millimeter, or it is any sized tumor which is less than 3 millimeter away from the fovea. So you call it as a macular type, or less than 1.5 millimeter away from the optic disc, and so we'll call it as juxtapapillary. Very good. And the last thing, that it could show some subretinal fluids less than 3 millimeters away from the primary lesion. The type C now. Type C means there is vitreous seeds, or there are some subretinal seeds, or both of them less than 3 millimeters. Type D means the same thing but more than 3 millimeters. And type E is an extensive tumor which is involving more than half of the retina, or which is extending into various portions, like it is extending and causing optic nerve involvement, or it is resulting in neovascular glaucoma, or it is causing hemorrhages in the aqueous, in the anterior chamber, in the vitreous, and so it is resulting in an opaque media. So that was the classification, that is international classification. So we have discussed the complete portion of disease entity. Now let's come to the pathology part. Pathology, we very well know that these are derived from retinoblasts, which are immature cells, which are sort of neuroectodermal in origin. And these compose the small round blue cells, that is the small cells which have a large hyperchromatic nucleus. And so you can, let's have a review of other small round blue cell tumors of the body. Yeah. Which are other of them? It is Ewing sarcoma, it is Pinet tumors, it is Wilms tumor, and it is the lymphomas. Okay, so these are the other small round blue cell tumors of the body. So this is also one of them: retinoblastoma, neuroblastoma, pineoblastoma, Ewing sarcoma, Wilms tumors, lymphomas, and Pinet tumors. Also the histopathology. How will my slide look like? It will show 3-4 characteristic features. Just remember the name of one, don't forget this name. Other ones, if you remember, then it's good. The most specific and characteristic for this is Flexner-Winter-Steiner rosettes. Flexner-Winter-Steiner rosettes. Other things you can find is like the Homerite rosettes. Sometimes we get pseudo rosettes, and you might also find bouquet looking things, that is your florets. Okay, so just remember the main word, that is Flexner-Winter-Steiner rosettes. Okay, so with that we have also done the pathology part. Now let's jump on to the diagnosis. In diagnosis, we will complete the clinical features in this video. So the clinical features, the clinical presentation, we will see what will be the presentations in the eye and what can be some other extraocular findings as well. So the presentation in the eye, we will use indirect ophthalmoscopy with scleral indentation. Why the scleral indentation? To get a pre-equatorial view, because the tumor can extend anteriorly as well. Okay. So diagnosis we are doing intraocular, and with the help of indirect ophthalmoscopy, the tumor can have 3 forms. It could be an early intraretinal tumor or the diffuse infiltrative type. Both are same things. Number 2, it could be an endophytic lesion. And number 3, it could be an exophytic lesion. So an early intraretinal tumor, an endophytic growth, or an exophytic type of a lesion. So if it is the first one, an early intraretinal tumor, that means it will show a homogeneous white placoid lesion. Number 2, if it is endophytic, then it will invade and grow inwards into the vitreous. Okay, it will grow into this vitreous and it will show a white polypoidal growth. Sometimes the surface can be pinkish or reddish because of hemorrhages. And if calcification is also present, then it gives the very typical and important thing, the appearance Yeah, anyone knows? The cottage cheese appearance. Okay, so this is a high yield fact. Cottage cheese appearance is seen in endophytic type of retinoblastoma with the help of indirect ophthalmoscopy. Okay, so endophytic growth we have discussed, and the last is exophytic. Exophytic means it will grow subretinally, so it will cause the detachment of the retina from the underlying choroid, and so it will mimic which condition? Exudative type of retinal detachment. So we have discussed these findings with indirect ophthalmoscopy, the intraocular findings typical of retinoblastoma. Now some extraocular findings. It can cause the tumors in other parts of the body. So which are the other tumors which occur because of RB gene mutation? Osteosarcoma. First we always say osteosarcoma. Others are like leukemias, gliomas, neuroblastomas, melanomas, rhabdomyosarcomas, and squamous cell carcinomas. So these are the tumors of the body can also cause. And how does it spread? The tumor can spread by direct invasion or through lymphatics. So direct invasion, it will spread directly into the eyeball anteriorly, or posteriorly it will cause invasion of the optic nerve in the brain, and through the lymphatics it will go into the preauricular lymph nodes, and then it will also cause distant metastasis. Okay, so that was the clinical features part of it also. So I hope it was very simple and it was enjoyable. So let's quickly recollect what were the very important high yield points. One was the cottage cheese appearance, that is endophytic type of lesion. Exophytic mimics exudative type of retinal detachment. The gene we must always remember, RB1 gene on 13q. And which is the second most common tumor? Osteosarcoma. And Knutson's hypothesis. Okay, heritable versus non-heritable type of RB. And yeah, that it is a small round blue cell tumor, and it shows the very characteristic Flexner-Winter-Steiner rosettes. Okay, so that was part 1 of the lecture series. Thanks a lot for watching. Please like, subscribe and share. Have a good day.